Hello everybody, welcome or welcome back to another video. If you are by some chance new here, my name is Jules and on my channel I like to go through all of the lovely art supplies that I have and talk specifically about colour and colour theory and I don't know, my relationship with creativity as a whole. So if you like that sort of content, then please stick around, check out some of my other videos. I've made some playlists on some various themes. Today, another season has come. In the past, I've done a springtime watercolor palette, a summertime watercolor palette, and an autumn watercolor palette. So you will not be surprised to learn that in this box of tricks, I have the colors that I've picked out for a winter themed watercolor palette. They are all my Roman Szmal paints. Before we get into this, Roman Szmal is a watercolor brand from Poland, and I love them for their very professional quality, but very accessible price. Before I get into the swatching of these paints, I just wanted to mention, before I forget, that I have been working a little bit on trying to get ahead on interacting with you guys more. A couple of people have asked me in the past how they can support the channel by means other than watching and liking and subscribing, which is already means the world to me. But I've set up an Amazon wishlist, and also I am working on Jackson's affiliate link as we are talking right now. So please do check the description box in case those are up and running. I'll put all of that information down there. I can't really monetize my YouTube channel because of the fact that I'm living where I am on a visa. So it's a little bit complicated. So any support is really, really welcome. YouTube does take a little bit of time and energy and also money. So thank you so much for being here either way, and I am very excited to get into these paints. So yesterday I went on the most beautiful snowy hike in the north of Belgium, and it was the most fantastic day ever, and I was very inspired by all the colours that we saw there, despite it being, well, mostly white because it was snowing. I'll probably insert some B-roll at some point. So these are the colours that I've chosen. There are 12 of them because they fit perfectly in these little Panda Hall watercolor boxes. They really just wedge in there like absolutely perfectly. You can see this box is a little bit grubby because I've used it before for some other paints. But I've put together this selection here. The only paints that I've pre-wet are the paints which are a little bit harder to wet, and I'll talk about those when we get there. But for now, I guess I will just grab my water and my brush. I promise I don't leave my brushes in my water usually. This is my Da Vinci Spin Synthetics #1 Quell. My favourite brush for use for swatching. And yeah, looking forward to seeing what these colours look like together. So I tried to arrange these in a way such as that we go from warm to cool and then warm to cool, but like starting with red. So the red that I've chosen is Perine Red, and it really is this sort of letterbox red. If you're if you live in a place where the letterboxes are red, currently where I am, the letterboxes are yellow, so doesn't really line up, but it is the most stunning true red, and I think it's perfect for like holly berries and some of the sort of pops of red you see on winter birds and flowers. I think it's just such a festive colour, and I just really love looking at reds in winter. You might have noticed in my last video when I was going through all of my red watercolours that it's a theme that comes up in the winter. I like to look at my warm colours. Makes me feel warm inside. We're currently waiting for about 15 centimetres, that's like 6 inches of snow to melt outside. It should all be going soon, which will be more practical but significantly less pretty. And then on the softer side, I chose Potter's Pink. So what I was thinking was those beautiful winter skies that we see when at sunrise or sunset in super soft peachy tones, and I think you could mix some really beautiful tones with this pink. And also Roman Szmal's version of this colour is my favourite one that I've tried so far. I do have some fun art supplies coming in the mail to me right now, which I'm looking forward to sharing with you guys on the channel. You'll have to let me know, do you also enjoy setting up watercolor palettes for seasonal contexts? Do you ever do that? Or, I mean, I just do it because I enjoy looking at my paints, to be honest. and I really enjoy sharing that with you. So the Roman Schwal Potter's Pink does granulate really nicely. It's also quite a vibrant pink for a Potter's Pink. And Potter's Pink is often a little bit harder to re-wet, so I do recommend pre-wetting it. But I think that these two colours go really nicely together, and I think they create a really nice range of mixes. I tried to include like some primaries in this set of 12, as well as some of the more nuanced colours that I really like. So up next is another colour that can be a little bit tricky to re-wet. It's Ultramarine Violet PV15. That's the pigment code. If you're not familiar, that stands for Pigment Violet 15. And I'm going to try and make this a little bit narrower so I can fit 3 more on here. You'll notice I did not draw out a grid or anything for this, but Ultramarine Violet is a very cool blue-leaning violet. I think that it just captures, if you mix it with the Potter's Pink and wash it out a lot to this really sort of delicate tone, I think it really, really captures a sort of a frosty essence, which I really like. I'm going to add a whole ton of water here, just because I think that it looks so nice when you get that granulation. And this is one of my favourite shades of purple as well, so maybe a little biased. Next, I have a colour that is very specific to Roman Schwal, one of their most famous colours, so I don't think this is going to be a surprise, but it's called Misty Morning. You can see in the palette it looks like a blue-grey. I do have my lights on right now because it is a little dim in this corner where I'm filming. I'm trying to improve my lighting setup and everything, and also my comfort because it's really cold in my house. But as you can see, this colour goes on a wonderful pale blue, but its secret is that it's actually made up of cobalt turquoise PG50 and a quinacridone pink or a quinacridone magenta kind of colour. So when it dries, in the mass tone it still can be this lovely soft blue, but it will separate into its component colours and it looks really, really so nice. I have the world's biggest cup of coffee here. I recommend that you also grab a drink. But yeah, this is one of my favourite colours of all time. It is, as I've said before, the colour that got me into watercolour to begin with, was when I bought this watercolour, my first ever one, since I had the student grade sets as a kid. And this colour is just so stunning, and the paints, they're just so nice to use. Like, who could not fall in love with watercolour after using these paints? And so this beautiful blue colour is Cerulean Blue, Cobalt Cerulean Blue, PB36. It's a slightly stronger version of the Cobalt Blue that I chose for the Autumn palette, which was Cobalt Ceylon Blue, PB35, which is the commonly referred to also as a Cerulean Blue. But this one is just like a little bit stronger tinting, but the colour of the sky yesterday was this colour. It was exactly this colour. I was looking at it and I was thinking, that's the colour. And it does granulate, and I know that a lot of people don't enjoy granulating paints for skies, but I think that it can add a really nice effect. And I think, especially if you mix it in with some of these other colours that I think would be perfect for the sky, it would create a really, really beautiful, beautiful tone. So as you can see, these are all really, really nice sort of soft dual tones, apart from the Perine Red, but I think that they go together quite nicely. But obviously I think that you do need some contrast. And so for my final colour on this row, I chose Roman Schwal's Indigo Blue, which is PB60, which is Indanthrone Blue, Anthracnone Blue, and also a black. So it's just a bit of a darker version of their Indanthrone Blue. And I think it's a lovely mixer. I think that it's perfect for nighttime skies, or if you wash it out just for like maybe a more muted blue-grey that's a little bit less whimsical than the Misty Morning. Misty Morning is a colour that I would describe as incredibly whimsical. And as you can see, this colour really does get super deep in the mass tone. It does lighten a little bit when it dries. I'm very excited about an upcoming video that I have for you guys. I've been working quite hard on the content for it. Last year I posted videos every week. It has been, it's almost exactly the anniversary of this YouTube channel, maybe a little past it now. And I really enjoyed making videos every week. But this year I am having to prioritize some other areas of my life a little bit more. And like I say, making videos does take quite a bit of time and effort. So I think I'll post videos every other week this year. But hopefully that means I'll be able to keep the standard of content and how interesting it is up at the same time, which is important to me more so than posting frequently. So I hope that's okay with everybody. I know it was really nice to post every week, and in an ideal world I'd continue doing that. Anyway, sidetracked. Beautiful, beautiful blue. I think it mixes really wonderful greens. And coming up with that, I have the yellows that I've chosen. So the first one is a brand new pigment to me that was in the autumn release from Roman Schmoll last year. It's called Nickel Tungsten Yellow. It's this sort of creamy primrose yellow. My previous experimentations with yellow included nickel titanate yellow, which is a very similar pigment. I must confess, I can't remember the name of this pigment right now. The number, rather. But this is just like a little bit of a softer, warmer tone of that. And it's quite opaque, but I do associate winter with those like super misty, muted tones. And I think that the yellows that I've chosen as a result really kind of reflect that. They're not super bright. I can't think of really anything in winter that's super bright yellow. But if you needed to indicate the sun in a sky or something, I think that this would be a really, really good colour for it. And to complement that, I've chosen a slightly warmer yellow. And this yellow is not even a yellow pigment, it's a brown pigment. It's Naples Yellow Deep, PBR 24, which is, I think, chrome titanate yellow. So these are both titanate, both these colours contain titanium as a component of the pigment, which does make them a little opaque. And I know that a lot of people prefer transparent watercolours, and I think I might be among them, to be honest, but I am always exploring other properties of watercolours, and I know that a very accomplished wildlife painter, Denise Soden, she has a YouTube channel, which I love to watch, really pushes for opaque watercolours and how they are underrated and people should use them more. So here are a couple of those. And this colour also granulates really, really nicely. I used it in my video about granulating yellows. You'll find that also on my channel if you're interested. I did like a nice painting of some lemons. But I keep coming back to this colour over and over again. I think it's the perfect warm, ochre-y yellow without being a yellow ochre. All right. So the next colour is also a colour that was new to me in autumn last year, but not a new release, just a new purchase. And it's Goite. So it's just an earth pigment. But I thought that for some wildlife and also for the sort of earth tones and wood in this winter, I think that this colour will be absolutely perfect because it has this sort of raw sienna look to it, but then when it dries, it has this beautiful dark brown granulation. It reminds me of, like, I don't know, like a tawny owl. I've never painted a tawny owl, but maybe I should. I'm really trying to get more creative this year and set aside more time. I also made, I know it just sounds like I'm plugging all my videos, but it's because I know that I'm reiterating myself. But I think that this colour is absolutely stunning. I would love to paint some wildlife with it, and I think it's a colour which is very, very surprising. I know Daniel Smith also does a version of Goite, and a lot of people also really, really love that colour. So let me know in the comments if you have experience using this colour and what you like to use it for. On to another pigment that was new last year. This is, well, it's not a new pigment, but it's a new paint from Roman Schmoll. It's called Natural Umber Reddish. And I think that's a very good description of it. It's sort of like a burnt umber, but it's very, very rich. And I figured that while this isn't a particularly, ironically, not a particularly natural tone, I think if you mix it with a touch of the indigo, then you probably get like a beautiful range of natural grayish brown mixes that would be really lovely for use with painting trees in the winter, or, like I say, animals. There's not that much botanical going on in the winter, right? So I guess a lot of these colours were on the warm side in the hopes of focusing around what you would be using to accurately paint animals. Not that I've ever painted anything using the accurate colours in my entire lifetime, but I know a lot of people do like to do that, so trying to cater to that. However, I did include a couple of greens, and the first one is this Chrome Oxide green. This was a new purchase last year as well, and I must say I really want to do a video mixing colours with Chrome Oxide green because I think it's an incredibly interesting pigment, and I thought that it would make for some really nice mossy tones, and also it's another granulating one, which I think also adds a lot of interesting texture, because I think that a lot of the plants that are around in the winter, they are this sort of muted, cool green lichen and moss and those sort of evergreen plants. They don't tend to have like a beautiful bright sap green colour to them. So I think this would be a really interesting one for adding texture. And much like with the blues, I noticed that this is kind of on the lighter side when it comes to value. So I included, and I think this is a carryover from the autumn palette, I included Perine Green Deep PBK 32, which is a slightly warmer tone of Perine Green. If you know Perine Green, it's a very deep on the blue side green, and this is more on the yellow side. But it's also quite transparent, so I think that's also a nice counterpart to the more opaque Chrome Oxide green. And then you can see, maybe as this palette comes together, you get where I was going with it when I chose them to represent winter. So you'll have to let me know if you would have chosen these colours in the comments down below. I'm going to let the paints dry and then give you a close-up of how they look. And yeah, I'll be back with you in just a second. Okay, so we are back and the paints are, for the most part, dry. And you can see what I mean about the granulation in these colours. So you have the Potter's Pink, which is really, really nice muted pink, and the Ultramarine Violet has a little bit more gentle granulation than the Potter's Pink. And then in the Misty Morning, you can see that separation of the pink and the green tones in there, turquoise tones, which I think is just absolutely stunning. I think if you get one paint from Roman Schmall, I would get this Misty Morning and just see it for yourself because it is really, really magical. And then the Cerulean Blue and the Indigo are a really nice pair of blues. I think you'd be able to get so much out of these. I think actually this could be potentially just a nice limited palette by itself, you know? That's kind of what I go for when I make these seasonal colour palette videos. But this Cerulean Blue is quite strong, and you can see in the mass tone is actually not so granulating. You only really see it when you add a lot of water, so there you can control that quite well. And the indigo gets super deep. Moving on to the yellows, you can see this beautiful buttery mid yellow with the nickel tungsten yellow, and it contrasts nicely with the warm granulating Naples yellow deep, that PBR 24, which I think makes really, really pretty mixes. I wish I had time to film some mixes for you right now, but I do not. But maybe I'll do some mixes in a separate video. Roman Schmall does have a paint called Ocean Blue, which is a mixture of phthalo blue green shade with this colour. And it is a really, really interesting one. That's another one I would recommend if you're just looking to pick up a couple to try. This Goite, you can see the tawny owl in it. It really has that golden brown undertone and then the dark brown granulation. And similarly, there's also a little bit of granulation in the natural Umber reddish, which I think is really, really pretty. I think these earth tones together, very versatile, very wintry, have a lot of potential, which I think is just so nice. And then into the greens, which are possibly still a little damp, you can see the lovely granulation in the Chrome Oxide green, and it partners really well with the deep foresty evergreen green of the Perine Green Deep. So hopefully you enjoyed going on a little journey as I natter on to you about these colours and why I chose them. I could really talk about them all day, so let's have a conversation in the comments down below. Let me know which of these colours is your favourites, if you would have chosen any other colours for a winter theme, and what you've got going on so far in the new year. I'd just love to get to know you guys. Really happy with this community that we're building here. And I will see you in the next couple of weeks with another video, and I have so many good ideas coming up, so do click the subscribe button because you don't want to miss those. All right, thanks everybody. Bye for now.